The Galactic Council was feared across 1,000 star systems. They called themselves the Guardians of Peace, the rulers of justice. But beneath their polished halls and shining symbols, cruelty lived like a dark shadow. They believed themselves above mercy, above morality. To them, humans were simple, weak, and easy to control. But one mistake would soon show them how wrong they were. On a small, remote human colony, 12-year-old Eli lived quietly with his family. He had never wanted to be famous or important. All he wanted was to explore the stars one day, to play with his friends, and to laugh under the twin suns that rose over their world. But the council saw something else. They accused Eli of being a spy, of carrying secrets he had no knowledge of. In reality, he was nothing more than a curious child who had wandered too close to a council outpost. The soldiers came in the dead of night. Their tall, black armor glimmered in the cold light of the moon. Eli's parents tried to resist, but they were thrown aside easily. Eli screamed, reaching for his mother, for his father, for anyone who could protect him. But there was no one. The council's machines were faster, stronger, and merciless. Eli was dragged into a chamber made of steel and glass, a place designed to break anyone's spirit. Strange devices hummed with cold energy. Lights pierced his eyes and voices whispered directly into his mind, forcing him to feel pain that burned like fire. His body shook uncontrollably, his small hands pressed against the walls, trying to escape, to run, to hide. But there was nowhere to hide. Hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. Eli's mind began to fracture under the council's torture. But inside him, a small spark refused to die. He thought of his family, of his friends, of the stars he had once dreamed of exploring. That spark, fragile as it was, clung to life. It whispered to him, "Survive. Someone will come. Someone will save you." Far away in the orbit of Earth, human defenders intercepted a faint distress signal. It was broken, garbled, almost impossible to understand, but the message was clear. A child was in danger and the council was responsible. The humans traced the signal to Eli's colony, discovering what the council had done. They were horrified. Every parent, every soldier, every leader felt the same burning anger rise within them. Captain Mara Vey, leader of the human rescue fleet, stared at the hollow map of the council's territory. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from rage. She had faced battles before, but nothing like this. Nothing could compare to the image of a child suffering in silence while the council sat comfortably in their halls, drinking their synthetic tea and discussing strategy. Mara's voice was low but firm as she spoke to her officers. "They think we are weak. They think a child's life does not matter. They are wrong. Very wrong." The human fleet began preparations. Ships were repaired, weapons calibrated, and stealth systems activated. Every human pilot, every soldier, every engineer knew the mission was not just about war. It was about justice. They were not going to ask for mercy, and they would not wait for permission. They were coming for Eli, and for anyone who had dared to hurt him. Meanwhile, Eli endured the council's cruelty. Every day brought new horrors. Machines probed his mind, forcing him to relive fears and pains over and over. He was left alone in darkness at night, listening to distant voices that taunted him, promising that no one would come. Some days he thought he would die, and in those moments he closed his eyes and whispered to the stars, "If someone comes, please let them be humans. Please save me." And then in that cold steel chamber he felt it, a vibration in the floor, faint but unmistakable, ships moving through the void, engines humming with determination. Eli's heart skipped a beat. Could it be possible? Could someone have found him? He dared to hope, even if just a little. Hope was dangerous, the council had taught him, but it was all he had left. On the bridge of the Dawnbreaker, Mara stared at the signals coming from the colony. She clenched her fists so hard that her knuckles turned white. "They will pay," she whispered. "Every world of theirs will burn if they hurt one of ours. Humanity does not forgive, and we do not forget." The council did not know it yet, but the galaxy was about to change. Their perfect halls of control and superiority would face a force they had never imagined. And it all began with the cry of a single human child, a spark of innocence that refused to die, because humans protected their own. Always. Captain Maravay stood on the bridge of the Dawnbreaker, her eyes fixed on the star map that flickered before her. Every dot represented a world under the Council's control, every line a path to revenge. Humans had faced many dangers across the stars, but nothing compared to the thought of a child suffering at the hands of the Galactic Council. Mara's hands clenched so tightly around the railing that her knuckles ached. The anger inside her was a living thing, sharp and burning, and she let it guide her. The crew around her moved with silent precision. They had trained for years, but training could not prepare anyone for the sight of their innocence taken and twisted by cruel beings. Engineers checked weapon systems, pilots ran simulations, and scouts monitored the Council's patrols. Everyone understood the mission: rescue Eli, punish the Council, and send a message to the galaxy that humanity would not bow to injustice. Mara turned to her first officer, Lieutenant Soren. "They think they are untouchable," she said, her voice quiet but deadly. "They think no one can reach their worlds. They think a child is just a number to them. They are wrong." "Very wrong," Soren nodded, his jaw tight. "We've studied their patrols. We know their weaknesses. We strike fast, we strike hard, and we leave nothing standing that they could use against us." The fleet jumped into hyperspace together, engines roaring like thunder. Outside the bridge, stars streaked into lines of white and blue as the Dawnbreaker and its companion ships hurtled across the void. Mara could feel every pulse of the engines in her chest, every vibration a reminder that action had finally begun. Back on the Council's worlds, no one noticed the humans approaching. They slept in arrogance, thinking their machines and fleets could stop anything. They had never faced humanity in its fury, never understood what it meant when humans fought not for conquest, not for greed, but for the protection of one of their own. In Eli's chamber, the child's hope flickered faintly. He had begun to think rescue was impossible, but then he felt vibrations in the walls, subtle at first, then stronger. Something was moving outside, something different. He could not see it, could not understand it fully, but his heart leapt. For the first time in weeks, fear was mixed with hope. Mara's fleet emerged from hyperspace near the first Council world. They moved silently, using shadows and stealth to avoid detection. Human ships were smaller and less numerous than the Council's massive warships. But humans had something no alien could ever calculate: cunning, courage, and an unyielding drive to protect their own. The first strike was precise. Mara watched from the bridge as long-range missiles disabled communication arrays and shields. Council soldiers scrambled, confused by the sudden silence of their systems. Fires ignited across military installations, but civilians were warned to evacuate. Humans did not kill indiscriminately, they fought with honor, even in vengeance. On the Dawnbreaker, Mara spoke to her crew. "This is not mindless violence," she said. "We are sending a message. We are showing them what it means to harm a human child. Every world they control, every fleet they build, every weapon they make, they are nothing compared to our resolve." Back in his chamber, Eli felt the walls tremble as explosions echoed in the distance. He could hear alarms, footsteps, shouts, and machines failing. His hope grew stronger. Maybe, just maybe, someone had come. The thought made his heart pound, his small fists clench, and his spirit rise above the pain. Mara's fleet moved swiftly from one world to another. Each strike was carefully planned, each attack measured, yet each left the Council trembling. The humans were not just a military force, they were an idea made flesh, unstoppable when protecting what they loved. Soldiers whispered among themselves as they watched the Council panic. "They are not gods. They are not untouchable. Humans will not forgive." As the night stretched across alien worlds, fires burned in the distance. Mara stood on the bridge looking at the chaos unfolding. But her mind never left the child. Eli was her guide, her reason to strike, the spark that ignited a storm across the galaxy. She would not stop until the child was free, until every last Council officer who had touched him felt the weight of human fury. And in that moment, Mara understood something that no calculation, no strategy could ever teach. Humanity was not defined by numbers, by weapons, or by fleets. Humanity was defined by love, by the courage to stand for the weak, and by the fire that rose when someone threatened the innocent. The call to fire had begun, and the galaxy would tremble. The first council world burned before sunrise. Mara watched from the bridge of the Dawnbreaker, her eyes reflecting the orange glow that filled space. Smoke rose from towers that had stood for centuries, great cities designed to impress now reduced to rubble and fire. Civilians ran, their alien faces filled with panic, but the humans had given them warning. This was not mindless destruction. It was justice. Humans did not strike to kill the innocent. They struck to punish cruelty, to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the council chambers, leaders shouted and argued. Their screens displayed the chaos of their once mighty world. Their armies shattered before they could even organize a defense. They could not understand it. How could humans with so few ships break through their defenses so easily? And yet here they were, burning, taking, destroying. Their arrogance had been their weakness. Mara clenched her jaw as she heard reports from her fleet. Each strike had been surgical, precise, devastating. Weapon caches were destroyed. Warships were disabled. Communications were jammed. The council's soldiers were disoriented, their confidence crumbling. Mara thought of Eli, the child who had started all of this. She could almost hear his small voice in her mind, calling for help, calling for rescue. It was that voice that fueled her fire, that drove every command she gave, every maneuver she executed. On the ground, Eli could barely comprehend what was happening. The walls of his prison trembled with explosions, and the council guards ran frantically trying to stop the humans they could not see. For the first time in weeks, Eli dared to hope. He pressed his small hands against the cold steel wall and whispered, "Are you here? Are you coming?" Back in the Dawnbreaker, Mara's voice came over the comms to the fleet. "Do not let up. Remember why we fight. Every world, every weapon, every soldier who harmed our child will face us. Keep moving." As humans swept through council space, the aliens began to realize the scale of the threat. Their pride had been built on the belief that no one could touch them. They had faced rebellions before, minor skirmishes and isolated uprisings, but nothing had prepared them for a species that fought not for land, not for power, but for the innocent. By the Third World, fires burned across entire continents. The Council had attempted to mobilize their fleets, but humans were too fast, too cunning. Mara's team had studied their every tactic, every weakness, and exploited it. Human ships moved like shadows, appearing where they were least expected, striking and vanishing before counterattacks could land. The Council's soldiers began to panic. Reports of their losses came in faster than their leaders could process. Communications were jammed. Cities were surrounded. Panic spread like wildfire. Mara's fleet had not only broken through, they had shattered the illusion of safety the Council had built over centuries. Eli's chamber shook violently as alarms rang throughout the building. Guards ran past his cell, shouting and cursing. The child's eyes widened in wonder and disbelief. Could this be real? Could humans actually reach him? His heart beat wildly, hope and fear tangled together. He pressed his face against the wall, straining to hear any sound of the rescuers. Mara watched the progress reports carefully. Each world destroyed, each weapon dismantled was a message. The Council needed to understand that harming a human child carried a price beyond imagination. Every human soldier, every pilot, every engineer knew the cost they were willing to pay. They did not fight for conquest. They fought for justice, for mercy, for the innocent who could not defend themselves. As night fell across the first three worlds, the fires could be seen even from orbit. Smoke stretched into the void, a signal to all who watched. Humans do not forgive cruelty. Humans do not forget. Mara felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. The Council had forced their hand. They had left the humans no choice. And still a part of her grieved for the destruction, even as she knew it was necessary. The child in the chamber could feel it too. The walls trembled, lights flickered, and distant explosions shook the floors. His small voice broke into a whisper, trembling but filled with hope. I knew. You would come, I knew. Humans would come for me. Mara looked out into the stars, her eyes hardened with resolve. The council thought they were untouchable. They thought they could hide behind their fleets, their machines, their laws. They were wrong. Humanity had begun its strike, and it would not stop until Eli was safe, and every council world understood the price of cruelty. In the silence of space, amid the fire and smoke, one truth rang clear. Humans protected their own. Always. And no machine, no council, no army could ever change that. Eli's small hands pressed against the cold steel walls of his chamber as the ground shook beneath him. The alarm screamed and the lights flickered in panic. He could hear the chaos outside, the shouts of terrified guards, the rumble of collapsing machinery, the distant roar of explosions. For the first time in weeks, his chest felt lighter. His heart, long heavy with fear, began to beat faster, not with terror but with hope. Somewhere in the darkness, he whispered, Is it really them? The thought seemed impossible, almost a dream. Could humans really have found him in the middle of the council's territory? Could they actually break through all the security, all the armies, all the machines designed to destroy him? His small fingers curled into fists, trembling with anticipation. Outside, Captain Mara Vey's fleet had begun the final push. Human ships moved like shadows across the council's capital world. They struck silently, disabling power grids, jamming communications, and neutralizing the guards without unnecessary harm to the civilians. Mara watched from the bridge of the Dawnbreaker, her eyes never leaving the signals that indicated the child's location. Every movement of her fleet was precise, every strike carefully planned. This is it, Mara said, her voice low but fierce, speaking to her crew. The child is close. Keep calm, move smart, and bring him home. Eli could feel the vibrations through the floors as humans advanced. It was not a storm of violence, though the council's machines were collapsing, but a force of determination and care. Every step the humans took, every strike they delivered carried one message. We will not let the innocent suffer. The council's guards were panicked. They had never faced humans in this way. Humans did not simply attack, they outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and struck with purpose. Panic spread through the towers and corridors as alarms blared and soldiers scrambled in confusion. For the first time, the council realized their arrogance had blinded them. They had underestimated humanity. Eli's eyes filled with tears as he heard distant voices, not harsh, not cruel, but urgent and alive. They shouted commands, moved swiftly, and brought the promise of safety closer. His small body shook, not from pain this time, but from relief. He whispered to the walls around him, Please, just a little longer. Please don't leave me. Mara's boarding party reached the perimeter of the facility. Soldiers in sleek human armor moved silently, disabling traps and security doors with calm precision. They knew time was short. Eli was fragile, frightened, and every second mattered. They were not just soldiers, they were guardians, sent to bring hope where there had been only despair. Inside, Eli pressed his face to the steel, listening to the growing sound of footsteps, voices, and the mechanical hum of the humans' advanced tools. His heart leapt. Could it really be? Could he finally be free? He dared to hope just a little, letting the memory of his mother's voice and his father's hug fill him with courage. The human soldiers reached his chamber and quickly disabled the security locks. One of them, a tall woman with kind eyes, leaned down and whispered, Eli, we're here to take you home. You're safe now. Eli's body trembled as he crawled toward her. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to cry. Not in fear, not in pain, but in relief. The small voice inside him that had whispered hope for weeks had been answered. The humans had arrived. Mara herself entered the chamber moments later, her eyes softening as she saw the child. You are safe now, she said. No one will hurt you again. We promise. Eli nodded, tears streaming down his face. I knew you would come, he whispered. His voice was barely audible, but it carried the weight of fear, suffering, and now overwhelming relief. Mara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Humanity protects its own, she said, always, and we will never let anyone take that from us. Outside the Council's capital was in chaos. Humans moved with precision, neutralizing threats and clearing paths for evacuation. Fires burned in distant districts, but the humans' focus was singular. The child, their charge, the reason for the storm they had unleashed across the galaxy. Eli took his first real breath of hope as he was escorted through the corridors. The walls that had been his prison for weeks now felt like a memory, something he had survived rather than something that held him. His small hands clutched at Mara's, holding on not just to safety but to trust. Mara's eyes met his and she nodded. You are stronger than you know, Eli. And soon, you will see, humanity never forgets and we never leave anyone behind. And in that moment, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Eli allowed himself to truly believe it. He was not alone, he was not powerless, and humanity had come to light the darkness of the Council's cruelty. The Council's high tower gleamed coldly under the light of distant suns, a monument to their arrogance. Inside, the leaders huddled behind layers of shields and security systems, their faces pale as reports of the human fleet's destruction reached them. They had underestimated humans, assumed them small and weak, and now the consequences were clear. Their arrogance had invited the storm, and that storm was Mara. Mara's ship hovered silently in orbit, the Dawnbreaker surrounded by her fleet. Every crew member knew the mission's ultimate goal, the rescue of Eli and the punishment of the Council for their cruelty. Mara herself felt the weight of it on her shoulders, but also the clarity of purpose. There was no hesitation, no doubt. Humans did not act without reason when the innocent suffered, and Eli had suffered enough to ignite the fury of an entire species. Inside the tower, the Council leader sneered, though his voice trembled. You dare enter our territory? You dare threaten us, humans. You are insignificant. Mara stepped forward on the bridge, her eyes steady, her voice cold but calm. Insignificant. You tortured a child. You broke him. You thought no one would see. You were wrong. Very wrong. Eli, now escorted safely by a team of human soldiers, watched from the transport shuttle. He had been weak, small, and frightened, but seeing Mara and her fleet, seeing humans strike with precision and honor, he felt something new. Strength. Not just physical strength, but courage. He had survived. He had been saved. And now he would see justice done. The Council leader laughed, sharp and bitter. You cannot harm us. We are untouchable. We have ruled for centuries. Mara's hand rested lightly on the control panel, her fingers tracing the buttons that could end the leader's command instantly. Untouchable? You are weak. You hid behind machines, behind laws, behind fear, but humanity does not hide. We fight, we protect, and we punish those who harm the innocent. With a single command, Mara's fleet disabled the Council's shields. Their warships became nothing more than targets, their fleets paralyzed by the humans' speed and precision. The Council scrambled desperately, but humans were already inside their systems, dismantling weapons, shutting down security, and cutting off escape routes. Eli's eyes widened as he watched the chaos unfold. He had been helpless for so long, but now he understood. Humans were not just strong, they were unstoppable when protecting those they loved. He felt a surge of pride, a spark of connection, knowing that his suffering had sparked something much greater. The Council leader tried to retreat into a protected chamber, but Mara anticipated it. There is no hiding from justice, she said. Every world you have controlled, every army you have built, every weapon you have used to hurt the innocent will fall before us. Human soldiers moved swiftly through the tower, neutralizing remaining guards with non-lethal precision where possible, but leaving no room for mercy for those who had inflicted pain on Eli. Each strike, each command, carried the weight of humanity's collective anger and sorrow. Eli's small voice broke the tension. You hurt me. You tortured me. He stepped forward, trembling but unbroken, his gaze fixed on the council leader. I am human, and you will never hurt me again. The council leader faltered. He had faced generals, armies, and strategists, but he had never faced a child speaking with such courage. Never had a human's innocence confronted him so directly. Mara watched Eli stand, a mixture of awe and pride swelling in her chest. The child had survived the impossible, and now he had reclaimed his voice. Mara spoke again, her voice ringing across the comm system. We are not here for revenge alone. We are here for justice. You will never harm another human child. You will never forget what happens when you do. The council leader fell silent, his arrogance shattered. He could feel the weight of humanity pressing against every part of his world, his fleet, his defenses. He understood now that cruelty had a cost, and humans were more than capable of paying it. Eli stood taller, no longer just a frightened child, but a symbol of resilience. His eyes met Mara's, and she nodded. You are safe now, Eli. You survived. And you have shown them the strength of humanity. Outside, the fires of the council's world still burned, but inside the tower, a new fire burned as well, the fire of justice, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of a human child who had refused to be broken. And in that moment, Mara understood something profound. Humans did not need to rule the galaxy. Humans did not need to conquer. They needed only to stand for what was right, to protect the innocent, and to fight when evil dared to touch them. The council had learned a lesson they would never forget. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity was unstoppable when protecting its own, and Eli, once small and helpless, now stood as living proof of that truth. The council's worlds were in chaos. Fires burned across their cities. Fleets lay in ruins, and alarms echoed through empty corridors. But Mara knew this was not the end. The council's cruelty had been punished, but their influence still lingered. Humanity would not stop until the last trace of their oppression was dismantled. Until every child was safe, until justice was complete. Eli stood on the dawnbreaker, looking out at the horizon of fire and smoke. His small hands rested on the rail, and for the first time in months he felt something he had not felt in a long time: hope. He could see the courage in the faces of the humans around him, the determination in Mara's eyes, and he realized he had been part of something bigger than himself. He had survived. He had inspired an entire fleet, and now together they would finish what had begun. The human fleet moved like a living storm through the council's remaining defenses. Mara's ships struck with precision, disabling weapons arrays and cutting off escape routes. They avoided harming civilians, focusing only on the machines of war, the systems of control, and the soldiers who had chosen cruelty over compassion. Each strike carried a message: harm a child and humanity will answer with fire. Eli watched as humans moved through the council's cities with disciplined strength. Soldiers dismantled war machines, engineers shut down toxic devices, and pilots disabled fleets in orbit. The council's leaders were powerless, their pride crumbling as they realized they had underestimated a species that fought for love, for honor, and for the innocent. On the ground, Mara led a strike team into one of the council's central command hubs. Guards tried to resist, but the humans moved with speed and precision that left them no chance. Mara's voice rang through the comm system, calm yet commanding. Remember why we fight. Protect the innocent. Destroy only the tools of their cruelty. Eli followed closely behind, flanked by soldiers. He had been small and helpless once, but now he felt the fire of purpose within him. Every step he took through the destroyed halls was a step toward reclaiming his life, his voice, and his dignity. He no longer whispered in fear. He spoke with courage. We will not let this happen again. Not to me. Not to anyone. Outside, the human fleet moved from world to world, a wave of relentless justice. The Council's remaining forces tried to regroup, but they were too slow, too disorganized, too afraid. Human ingenuity and courage outmatched technology, strategy, and years of arrogance. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this, and it would never forget. Eli saw the Council's armies falter, their leaders retreating in panic. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. These humans, his people, had risked everything for him. They had burned the worlds that threatened him, faced the unknown, and never hesitated. And they had done it not for conquest, but for a child, for justice, for the hope that one small human life mattered. Mara and her team reached the Council's final stronghold on that planet. The last machines of torture were dismantled, the last soldiers neutralized. Mara's voice echoed across the empty halls. This is humanity. We protect our own. Always. And no one, no matter how powerful, will ever take that away. Eli stepped forward, his small face streaked with tears and soot. He had survived fear, pain, and despair. Now he stood among humans who had shown him the meaning of courage, the power of love, and the strength of their kind. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for not leaving me behind. Mara smiled gently, kneeling beside him. You don't need to thank us. This is who we are. Humanity never leaves its own. Never forget that. As the fires burned in the distance and the smoke of destroyed fleets drifted into space, a new feeling settled over Eli. It was not just hope. It was pride. It was the knowledge that he had survived, that he had inspired, and that humanity, his people, would always fight for the innocent. The Council's worlds were scarred, their fleets shattered, and their leaders humbled. But humanity had not conquered for greed. They had not destroyed for pleasure. They had acted with honor, with love, and with a singular purpose, to protect the weak and punish the cruel. Eli looked up at Mara, his voice stronger now. Will they ever hurt anyone again? Mara shook her head. They will think twice. Humanity has shown them what it means to harm one of our own, and we will always be ready. And across the galaxy the story spread. Fires might burn, cities might fall, but humans had proven something far greater. When one of theirs is threatened, they rise together, unstoppable, unyielding, and unwavering. Eli smiled faintly, the first real smile in months. The pain of the past would not disappear, but the knowledge that he had survived, and that humanity would always protect him, gave him a strength that no council could ever destroy. And somewhere in the stars, a silent promise echoed, never harm a human child. Humanity will always answer. Always. The fires of the Council's world still burned, their smoke stretching into the void of space. Ships drifted silently above destroyed cities, and the once mighty fleets of the Council lay in ruins. The galaxy had witnessed a force it had never seen before. Humans not for conquest, not for greed, but for justice, for courage, and for the protection of one small child. Eli stood on the deck of the Dawnbreaker looking out at the stars. His hands were still small, still trembling from fear and exhaustion, but his heart felt lighter. He had survived the impossible. He had been saved. And he had witnessed the strength of humanity, the fire that rose when the innocent were threatened, the courage that refused to bow to cruelty, and the unshakable bond that held humans together no matter the cost. Marave walked beside him, her steps steady and calm. Do you understand now, Eli? She asked softly. Humans protect their own. Always. Eli nodded, tears in his eyes. I do, he whispered. I never knew humans could be so strong. Mara smiled faintly. Strength isn't just weapons or ships. Strength is courage. Strength is hope. Strength is never leaving someone behind, no matter the cost. Across the galaxy, council leaders were humiliated. Their arrogance had been shattered, their fleets crippled, their worlds scarred. They had believed themselves untouchable, above consequences, and now they had learned a lesson they would never forget. The message was clear and simple. Harm a human child and the consequences will reach beyond imagination. Back on the planets, the survivors watched the humans with a mixture of fear and awe. The humans did not gloat, did not destroy unnecessarily. They had acted with precision and honor, leaving the innocent untouched while dismantling the tools of cruelty. The galaxy had witnessed something remarkable, not just the fury of a species, but the principles that guided it. Eli felt the weight of it all. He had been weak, frightened, and alone, but now he understood. Humanity had come for him, had risked everything, and had fought not for power but for love, for justice, for hope. That realization filled him with pride he had never known he could feel. Mara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You survived the darkness, Eli, and you helped us show the galaxy who humans really are. You are part of this story now. Never forget that." Eli looked up at her, his eyes shining with tears and determination. "I will never forget. I will never be afraid again." As the Dawnbreaker lifted from the planet's surface, the fires below reflected in Eli's eyes. He realized that humanity had left more than destruction. They had left a mark on the galaxy, a warning, a promise, and a story that would be remembered. The Council's cruelty had been answered with more than vengeance. It had been answered with courage, honor, and the unstoppable force of a species united. Mara addressed her fleet one last time before leaving Council space. "Let this be a lesson to all who watch. Humanity does not bow to fear. Humanity does not forgive cruelty. Humanity protects its own. Always. Remember that." Eli felt warmth in his chest, not from the heat of fire, not from the engines of ships, but from the love and protection surrounding him. He knew he would never be alone again. He had been rescued, and he had witnessed humanity at its best, brave, fierce, and unyielding. As they jumped to hyperspace, Eli whispered to the stars, to the galaxy, to anyone who might hear, "Thank you for not leaving me behind. Thank you for showing me hope." And somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, a story began to spread. A story of a small human child captured and tortured by the cruel Galactic Council, and of the humans who burned worlds to save him. It was a story of courage, of hope, and of a species that would always rise to protect the innocent. The galaxy would remember Eli's name, the humans who saved him, and the truth that echoed across the stars. Never harm a human child. Humanity will answer. Humanity will protect. Humanity will never forget. Eli smiled faintly, for the first time truly free, as the stars stretched ahead, endless and bright. The past would not be forgotten, but the future was his to embrace. Humanity had proven itself, and Eli knew that he and every child would always be safe in the care of those who never left anyone behind. In the cold, dark expanse of space, one truth remained unshakable, a promise that would echo through every star system for generations. Humans defend their own, always, and no one, not council, not tyrant, not machine, could ever change that.